Let's talk paraphrasing. I learned this strategy from a couple teachers at Anoka Community College last year. So, a paraphrase is your words, somebody else's ideas. And there's a couple of reasons to do this. One is if a paper is 50, 60, 70% all somebody else's quotes, what are you doing, right? I mean, are you just cutting and pasting, and why don't we go to those original sources? So one part is the ownership, but the other is sometimes in paraphrasing, right? It's the way that it's said is fine, but there's nothing special about it, so you can put it in your own words. In other words, you paraphrase when it doesn't seem like quoting is important. And when is quoting important? Well, if you want to keep the flavor the way it was particularly said, you may want to quote. If it's some jargon that would be very hard to translate because it's using, 40% technical words, that's also a time when you might want to quote. And then other times, if it's beautifully written and you like the way that it's said and you want to capture that, you can be right in there. But paraphrasing is, it's some good information. I'm going to put it in my words. You'll still give that person credit, as you see in this above example. So there's an article from 2014 in the LA Times by Kapia Kawama, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, How Anti-Gay Christians Evangelize Hate and Abroad. And it's a really interesting article. Side note, as a Christian myself, I get really ticked off when I see other Christians passing on questionable things as far as the love category goes, because if you read the whole article, what you see is there are countries in Africa that have everything from jail time to death for being gay, and evangelicals, and this is not all evangelicals, of course, but some actually leaders are going over there and saying, hey, good job, here's how to keep sure and make sure you have these good laws up there. So this is an article about that. And so here's a quote that I took. By recasting LGBTQ people in other countries as creations of the West, these leaders both feed on and fuel existing prejudices. Strongly worded statements from President Obama, Secretary of State John F. Kerry, and UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon merely reinforce the argument that the West is imposing an international gay agenda on unwilling nations. The irony, of course, is that these anti-Western policies were created and marketed by Americans. Another reason I picked this one is because when I first read it, I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't want to have to paraphrase this. So here we go. Step 1. Color code the different parts of each sentence. So in this first sentence, by recasting people in the communities as creations of the West, that is, right, a subordinate or introductory clause, really. That gets one color. And then the second half gets another color. I go to the next part, and you can look at chunks. Oftentimes, if there's only one chunk, there's only one chunk. But typically, you'll find 2 or 3, chunks. These are basically broken down into 2 chunks. So I have gone and color coded this. So, and if you haven't done this before, right, you just highlight the part you want to color code. Make sure you're at the home screen, and then you just go in here and pick a color. Oh, I'm going to lose my color. Yep, we'll go there. So that's how you make color. I have color coded each one of these into chunks. All right. Step 1. Step 2, change the order of each sentence. So now I'm just moving the chunks around. So I've taken, by recasting LGBTQ people, right? That was at the beginning. Now it's at the end. So I have changed the order of all of these sentences. That's very important because when it comes to paraphrasing, you can't just change the words. If the sentence is the car went down the street and I change it to the automobile went down the road, I haven't paraphrased. All I've done is switched out a couple words. So it needs to be your words and your structure. And by flipping the chunks in the order of the sentences, you know you are already going to break out of their structure, and that's going to help you put it into your own words. And paraphrasing is something that you just have to do, right? And it is hard sometimes in the beginning. It'll also depend on what you're choosing. Some sentences are easier than others, but it's work. Step 1, color code. Step 2, switch the order. Now, once you've changed the order, now you can change the word. So I can show you these leaders both feed and fuel existing prejudices by recasting, right? So we've seen that a bunch of times now. So what do? Spokesmen used anti-homosexual feelings that were already present, right? That's the leaders fueling already there, and add to them by presenting the LGBTQ population as a creation of the West. Oh, and you know what? I knew I was forgetting something. This and this is the same. So let me hit pause. And we're back. It took me about 5 minutes to reword this because it was a tricky part, and that's what it takes. And I'll miss stuff too. You'll miss stuff. And I'm going to get so angry if you miss something. No, of course not. What I'll do is if I see something and you're missing something, I'll go, you missed it. I'd like you to fix it, right? This stuff happens. So, and this is not like an ideal paraphrase either, but it will work. And what I want you to have is paraphrases that work. Now, if I'm using the exact same words, no, right? That's not going to work. That's why once I caught it, I said, oh, okay, I got to go back. So I changed it to, instead of presenting LGBT population as creations of the West, showing that these groups not as fellow citizens, but as a group of people that are products of Western culture. I mean, it will work, right? The one thing that I do like about that is that it does kind of, you never want to change any of the meanings when you're paraphrasing something, but this does bring out that they actually are, by saying these people were something made from the West, that is separating them from that this is your actual neighbor. So, as you can see, I go through and take each one of these phrases, now I've changed the order, and I put them into my own words. Now, there's a couple phrases, right? Gay agenda. I'm not going to come up with another term for gay agenda. And typically, you don't want to have quotes in your paraphrase unless it's something that you really need to. For example, gay agenda. It fits. It's okay. We'll put it in there. If you had some sort of chemistry formula that there's no way to get around, so you can use quotes in a paraphrase, but you really want to reduce it to absolute necessity. So here, the West's supposed gay agenda is supported by using the words of support of LGBTQ rights, not for, from. And this is the second time I've gone through this. So, first time, thought it was decent, had some errors into it. I had some editing to do that I didn't even know. Okay. Here's another sentence. Were created, the irony, so now I go paradoxically, Americans were the ones who designed and sold the anti-Western. Again, there's that quote, I'll just put it in there. Political stratagems, right? These policies. So, when we look at the whole thing, we've got the original in quotes, and now Capia argues that. And that is often a lead into we know a paraphrase is coming. Because if I just said, if it was an exact quote, I'd have argues, comma, right, and quotation marks going on. But instead, it's going to be my words. They argue it. Now, if this had a page number, I would actually have the page number where this source came from, right? And where was that error? From. Ah, there we go. Good enough to turn it in. Right. When it comes to paraphrasing, pick the piece you want, color code it, change the order, change the words, and see how that works for you.